where are you at right now with Zach Wilson potentially being drafted second overall to the Jets?
I'm very high on it. I think that when the report came out that the Philadelphia Eagles were looking to move up to number 3 with Miami, and then eventually they just swap picks to move back to number 12 with Miami, so Miami can move back into the top 10, shows that they know that they need the pieces more than they need the quarterback. They're not just a quarterback away. They are entering a full year of giving Nick Sirianni, the first-year head coach, a chance to work with Jalen Hurts. And because they weren't able to get that deal done, and knowing the connections with Joe Douglas and Howie Roseman, that probably sells everything we need to know that Zach Wilson, the only quarterback Philadelphia was interested in, will not be there when they're picking at number 3. So they can't give up all this draft capital to move up for a guy that they are not sold on and then take just a random player at number 3. So when that news broke, I think it's very clear that if Zach Wilson is the guy that they believe is their guy in Philadelphia, and he's not going to be there at 3, that means he's going to be going at 2. And at that point, I think it's just very common knowledge that when you send your OC, your head coach, and your GM to a pro day, you are highly interested in this guy. And with an early pick like this, with an upside guy like Wilson, he's likely the number 2 pick.
Well, you mentioned the Eagle connection, and you're spot on, but also the Niners know the Jets better than anyone. So obviously they're aware of what the Jets are doing with the second pick, so they feel comfortable going to number 3 because they know a quarterback they like will be there, which to me is another indication that the Jets are definitely going quarterback. And I just think there's too much smoke here for them not to take Wilson at this point.
The only way I could see them not taking Zach Wilson would be they would have an offer bigger than what we saw for Robert Griffin III in 2012. That was 6 picks, 7 picks, 3 future first rounders, multitude of picks later. And they would be sold that Sam Darnold at least has upside left on his contract at 23 years old. They would have to option in, I think, for this year, or they could have at least option out, maybe swing and a miss next year, but they would have then 3 first-round picks in 2022. It would have to be a monumental offer. It would have to be bigger than what they would offer for Deshaun Watson. That's how big of an offer it would have to be for them to be able to trade out of that number 2 pick. So I'm with you. I think 100%. When San Francisco moved up and it wasn't Philadelphia, the 3 of them somewhat had a conversation together because the GM, head coach, all have ties to both organizations. They knew who was going number 2. San Francisco knew our guy's going to be there at number 3. Philadelphia said, we're out. We're moving back. Let's run it with Jalen Hurts and see what we got. Get as many picks as possible to make Nick Sirianni's rebuild at least somewhat productive.
Where does Sam Darnold get traded to, Cole?
This is a weird one. I'm going to be very shocked if he gets traded on draft weekend. But if I was to say one team right now that I think would make the most sense would be the Denver Broncos. Because if I'm not sold that Drew Lock is going to be the guy, I think Vic Fangio realizes that Drew Lock is his best bet right now because they're not going to be able to trade what they all want to move up to go get a Justin Fields. And if they're not sold on Justin Fields, they're 100% not sold on Mac Jones, which means Trey Lance would be their only other guy. I think that if Drew Lock, if you do not trust him, if you do not think that he can be a capable starter, go ahead and offer a 3rd-round pick for Darnold. Go ahead and get him. Make sure that he is your guy going into competition. He shows a young quarterback. We just said he's 23 years old. There's a multitude of talented receivers: Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant. He will have the best offensive line he's ever had, and he'll have a very competent, up-thriving defense. This is his best spot right now. And even I'm not sure that Denver's going to make an offer for him because if they can just probably wait one season and sign him, hopeful that he could be the next guy, or they're still hopeful that Drew Lock will hit in 2021. But George Payton is a new GM. And if George Payton wants to get this deal done, I think Darnold to Denver makes the most sense at this point. I don't think it's Washington anymore. I believed it was Washington for a while, but I do not think that. I think it's got to be Denver.
John Elway also loved Sam coming out of USC, but could not move high enough to get him. I'll throw one Darnold team at you that I think is kind of flying under the radar. How about the Carolina Panthers? Because we know they want a quarterback. Well, they're kind of running out of options to get one because if they want to move up, the Jets clearly aren't trading at a 2. It doesn't look like the Niners certainly aren't trading at a 3. And the Falcons are in their own division if they decide to not even take a quarterback 4th overall. So if they want to try and upgrade at quarterback, maybe trade a 2nd-round pick to the Jets for Darnold and, He's only 23. Let him compete with Teddy Bridgewater and see if they could be the team that can maximize Sam's potential.
I think that would be a good backup plan. I just feel like if you're trying to do right by Darnold, knowing you failed him, get into a team that I think has more upside in a division that is basically quarterback eccentric, which is, the AFC West, with Derek Carr coming off another 4,000-yard season. You have the Rookie of the Year in Justin Herbert. You have an MVP in Patrick Mahomes. And while you still may be the weakest link, you do have the strongest assets. You look at what Carolina needs. They still have needs on the offensive line. They still have a ton of needs on defense, especially at that linebacker position. They still need to upgrade, I think, for another receiver, with DJ Moore going into his 4th year, Robbie Anderson going into his 2nd year with the team, and I believe it's a contract season as well. They lost Curtis Samuel. I get the fit, and I think that Joe Brady, if he could fix Sam Darnold, that is the ticket that lands him a head coaching job in the NFL as one of the next up-and-coming young head coaches. But I still think Denver's a better fit. Now, it depends on what the offer is. If New York can get that 30, I believe it's 39 for Carolina in the 2nd round, you have to take that offer. But if you can get maybe 73 versus 78 and you want to do right by Darnold, Denver's a better fit for Darnold to be successful upcoming next year. But I do think Carolina's on the clock. And what will be interesting is, can new GM Terry Fontenot go out and get other new GM Scott Fritter into a fleece deal to where it is an in-division trade, but they get a ton of capital in return from the Carolina Panthers, just so that that way they can at least say, well, we may not have gotten a quarterback for the future, but the quarterback that they drafted, they gave us all these picks in return for him. But that's the only way I do see Carolina taking a quarterback right now. That San Francisco deal really makes Carolina cautious on where they're drafting now and what position they're drafting for next season at pick number 8.
Cole, we're up against it, so we got to run. Great stuff as usual. We'll talk soon.
See you soon, bud.
Thanks for watching the full YouTube video. If you like what you saw, then please subscribe to my page for more content. Thank you.